Welcome, everyone. As a neurologist, I spend my days analyzing the profound and literally mind-boggling complexities of the human brain, and I am so thrilled to share that world with you today. Let's dive right into this explainer, where we're going to explore the microanatomy of the brain. We'll start small, looking at the individual communicating cells, and then we'll zoom way out to examine the massive fortress that actually protects them. By the end of our rounds today, you'll have a vivid picture of exactly how our nervous system is structured and defended.
All right, here's the syllabus for today's rounds. We'll cover the anatomy of a neuron, the journey of a signal, glia, the blood-brain barrier, cellular transport, and finally, disease and the barrier.
Okay, Section 1. Anatomy of a neuron, the fundamental unit. Notice the distinct tree-like shape of the motor neuron we have here. Unlike your typical round animal cell, a neuron is designed specifically to receive and conduct electrical impulses over long distances. You can see its cell body is located safely in the spinal cord, but its incredibly long fiber extends all the way out to a muscle. In humans, a single axon like this can actually be over a meter long. It's just an absolute anatomical marvel of communication.
Now, as students of the brain, you absolutely must know these structural terms to understand how information enters, is processed, and then sent away. Think of the dendrites as the antenna, catching those incoming signals. The soma or cell body, well, that's the metabolic headquarters where the nucleus lives. Then you have the axon, the main transmission cable, which is often wrapped in an insulating myelin sheath to really speed things up. And finally, that cable ends at the presynaptic terminals where the signal is passed on.
And this brilliantly illustrates how shape dictates function in our nervous system. Just look at the extreme variations here. Notice how the highly branched Purkinje cell of the cerebellum acts like a massive net to pool huge amounts of information. Compare that to the much simpler bipolar cell from the retina of the eye. A neuron's physical form is perfectly, intricately tailored to its specific communicative job. Moving right along, Section 2, Journey of a Brain Signal. Let's trace the message.
So the crucial point here is tracing the sequential journey of a signal. It's kind of like a highly coordinated relay race. First, the signal lands on the short outgrowths called dendritic spines, which increase the surface area for reception. Step 2, that information travels into the soma, where it's integrated. Step 3, if the signal is strong enough, boom, it fires down the axon, speeding along thanks to that myelin insulation. Finally, in Step 4, it hits the presynaptic terminals, also known as end bulbs, where it triggers the release of chemicals across the junction to the next cell.
Section 3, glia, the support network, and really the unsung heroes of the brain.
Let's compare them side by side. While our high-maintenance neurons transmit information across vast distances, they generally don't divide or replace themselves. Glia, on the other hand, don't transmit information over long distances. They're much smaller, but highly numerous, taking up about the same volume in the brain as the neurons do. They act as the local infrastructure, managing waste, wrapping axons, and facilitating local chemical exchange.
Notice the diverse glial workforce we've got. Look at those star-shaped astrocytes. They wrap around the presynaptic terminals of a group of axons, absorbing and releasing chemicals to synchronize nerve activity. Then we have the tiny microglia, acting basically as the brain's internal immune system by proliferating in damaged areas and removing waste, viruses, and fungi. Clinically, as a neurologist dealing with nerve injuries, this distinction is massive. Out in the periphery of your body, specialized glia called Schwann cells can actually guide repairing axons back to their targets if you, say, cut your finger. But in the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, damaged neurons generally aren't replaced. Instead of guiding repair, the body literally builds a wall along the sides of the brain's blood vessels, and astrocytes form scar tissue. This is exactly why brain and spinal cord injuries are so devastating and, unfortunately, largely irreparable.
Which brings us to Section 4, the blood-brain barrier, the ultimate defense.
So I pose this question to you on rounds today. What exact mechanism defends our delicate neural city from the chaos of our general bloodstream? Think about it. When you eat something slightly toxic or get a standard viral infection, why doesn't it immediately destroy your non-renewable brain cells?
Section 5, Cellular Transport. Let's look at crossing that barrier.
Well, the secret lies in the physical structure of the barrier itself. In most of your body, there are gaps between the endothelial cells that form your capillaries, which allows chemicals to pass pretty freely. But here in the brain, these endothelial cells are packed so tightly together that they form an impenetrable brick wall. They are joined tightly to keep out most viruses, bacteria, and harmful chemicals.
They literally force molecules to cross the cell membrane itself if they want any chance of entering the brain tissue.
Think of transport across this barrier exactly like city infrastructure. Passive transport, that's like an open freeway. Small, uncharged essentials like oxygen and carbon dioxide, as well as molecules that dissolve in fats, can cross freely without the brain expending any energy at all. But then we have active transport. Because the brain needs heavy, specific cargo like glucose for nutrition and amino acids for building proteins, it uses active transport systems. These are like energy-expending toll booths that actively pump these vital, larger molecules from the blood directly into the brain.
Finally, Section 6, Disease and the Barrier. What happens when the fortress fails?
Let's see how this builds a clinical picture. First, the barrier isn't totally perfect. Sneaky viruses, like the herpes virus responsible for chickenpox or shingles, can actually bypass the gates, enter spinal cord cells, and hide out from the immune system forever, sometimes re-emerging decades later. Furthermore, vertebrate neurons depend almost entirely on glucose. But to even use that glucose, your body needs a chemical called thiamine, or vitamin B1. In the clinic, we see patients, often chronic alcoholics, with a severe thiamine deficiency. Because they can't use glucose, their brain cells literally starve. This prolonged deficiency leads to a tragic condition called Korsakoff syndrome, which is marked by severe, irreversible memory impairment.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to ponder this beautiful mystery, first noted by anatomical pioneers like Santiago Ramon y Cajal. He proved that nerve cells remain separate, separated by microscopic gaps, rather than merging into one physical web. Yet we experience our consciousness as completely undivided. How do millions of separate, isolated cells, diligently protected by these massive blood-brain barriers, perfectly combine their influences to create our singular, unified consciousness? It's a fascinating question, and for sure, one that makes the study of the nervous system the absolute most exciting field in medicine. Thank you so much for joining me on Rounds today.